So I'm Cathy Marie Buchanan, and my novel, The Day the Falls Stood Still, was inspired by the life of William Red Hill, Niagara's most famous riverman. Today with me I have Edith Hill, who is Red Hill's oldest daughter, the only surviving child of the 7 children that were in the Hill family. So thank you for agreeing to come and talk to me today.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Yeah. I'm very curious about what it was like growing up in the Hill family, and can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, with all the brothers and sisters, you can imagine, we were always doing something. Dad took us a lot of places. We had a big old-fashioned touring car with the isinglass curtains, and he'd take us to Crystal Beach because he liked to skate, and so did I. And we went on little fishing trips, and he showed me a lot of things that I wouldn't have seen without him.
Your father knew the Niagara River the way most people, know their own backyards, and I'm interested in how your dad came to know so much about the Niagara River.
Well, it had a great fascination for him. He said he felt as if it was calling to him, drawing him, and that's why he spent most of his time down there.
In The Day the Falls Stood Still, which you've read, there's a couple of your dad's famous rescues. First, the barge rescue, or the scow rescue, and then the ice bridge tragedy rescue. The ice bridge tragedy rescue happened a couple of years before you were born, and then the barge rescue happened when you were just a wee baby. But I imagine you grew up hearing about these stories. And
oh yes, there were always stories.
Yeah.
And whenever he started telling a story, a crowd came around, and I never liked crowds.
So your dad was a great storyteller then?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah. Your dad, in addition to being a rescuer on the river, was also assisted a handful of daredevils. He helped Bobby Leach, who went through the Whirlpool Rapids in a barrel, as well as Charles Stevens and Jean Lucier and George Stathakis, who went over the falls. And in those attempts to go over the falls, both Charles Stevens and George Stathakis lost their lives. And I'm wondering if your dad ever made comments on what he thought about those attempts.
Well, he thought they were all damn fools, but he was a damn fool himself quite often, so we couldn't say too much.
Yeah.
But Charles Stevens, my mother and I made like large pillows with a blue and white ticking. I ran the sewing machine. And we packed them with feathers, and my dad says after they pulled him out, everything was covered with feathers.
Wow, so the pillows that you and your mom made were in the barrel with Charles Stevens. Wow, that's crazy. Nothing that exciting happened to me growing up.
In those days they used blue and white ticking.
Right.
Heavy stuff.
Yeah. Wow.
And that's how I first started to sew. My mother said, if you can run down that line without going off, you can handle a sewing machine.
Oh, that's great. So in 1910, your dad actually was helping Bobby Leach go through the rapids in a whirlpool, and when he pulled Bobby Leach's barrel out of the Whirlpool Rapids, your dad got into the barrel and became a daredevil himself, riding the rapids from the Whirlpool down to Queenston Heights. And then in 1931, he attempted to run the rapids all the way from the base of the falls, the Maid of the Mist landing, and he was hoping to get all the way to the length of the gorge to Queenston Heights. His barrel got stuck in the whirlpool. And can you tell us a little bit about that day?
Well, actually, I only heard about it, but I think my brother Bill dove in and went and grabbed hold of the rope on the barrel and helped pull it to shore. And of course, there were other people there too. Yeah. But that's, you see, I was a girl.
Yeah. So you didn't get to do these Riverman kind of things. Yeah. And Bill is the one that's also been known as Red Hill Jr.
Yes.
Your dad died in 1944, and your 4 brothers kept up the Hill tradition on the river after that. Recovering bodies, rescuing stranded tourists. Major and Red Hill Jr. also duplicated your father's trip through the rapids in a barrel, and each of those brothers attempted to go over the falls, first Major in 1950 and then Red Junior in 1951. Can you tell us a bit about those attempts?
With Red Junior, it was a very sad case. He went to my sister Margaret and he said, I want you to prepare the breakfast you know I always eat. And he says, it might be the last breakfast I ever had. So we figured he was going to commit suicide. Really do.
Really? Wow. And were you at the falls that day, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I was there that day. I saw that thing go over the falls, but they say afterwards they didn't think he was in it. He was thrown out before it went over. Anyway, he was badly cut up. Terrible.
And I think it was about 4 hours or something before they recovered his body, right? So they wouldn't have. So there would have been that horrible period where everybody was hoping, and then you end up with the bad news. A year after you lost Red Hill Jr., another brother, Corky, was lost in a hydroelectric accident in one of the tunnels. Yeah.
I was working at the hospital, and I saw the 3 people coming along with this gurney. Gurney?
That's right.
Well, and 2 of them were nurses at the head, and then one was pulling. And I couldn't figure out what was dropping all over the floor. And here they were leaving quite a trail of blood. I never found out for close to 20 minutes that it was my brother.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. The rock had gone right down through his head, lodged here.
Your brother Wes was the last of the great rivermen on the river. And I guess I read somewhere that he assisted some of the people that were doing films and helped rig up cameras that would go over the falls.
Well, he worked in a lot of the movies as the safety man. He had all the equipment for saving the people no matter what went on. And there was a real large stone there, and he'd go right into the water till it was up to his chest in order to get the right angle for everything.
You once told me, Edith, that sometimes people made fun of what your father and your brothers did on the river and that it hurt. Can you comment on that at all?
Well, it seems like there were people who thought he was wonderful and people that thought he was a damn fool. And I heard both of them. And it hurt quite a bit, but still all the children came around our house, knocked on the door. Can Mr. Hill come out and skate tonight?
Oh, that's lovely.
He was great on skates.
That's lovely. So you read The Day the Fall Stood Still, and Bess, the woman, Bess Heath, that narrates the story, or the book's protagonist, I mean, she was a purely fictional character, but I'm wondering, as you read, did you see shades of your mom in Bess at all?
She made me think of my mother so much. Yeah. But my mother didn't sew beads. She just did ordinary clothing.
Yeah.
She collected soldiers' uniforms from several of the neighbors and asked them if they wanted them made over or just keep for our memory. And most of them said they'd be glad to clothes for their children. So she was busy making short pants, 3/4 length pants, little jackets, and she enjoyed doing it. So most of the children around had outfits made from that wool khaki. But she made all my clothes until I was 12 years old. I was the best dressed girl in the school.
That's interesting. I mean, that's just coincidental that I chose for Bess to be a dressmaker and that your mom was, in fact, a sewer. That's lovely. So, in The Day the Fall Stood Still, the townsfolk sort of speculate about the nature of Tom Cole's remarkable ability to predict the often erratic behavior of the Niagara River and Falls. What do you think about the nature of your dad's remarkable abilities on the river?
I think he knew a little bit more than anybody else around, especially about that river. I've seen him sitting at the table having a meal, and all of a sudden he'd jump up off the chair and go to the door. And my mother would say, "What's now?" And he says, "There's something going on down the river and I got to get down there." And he did.
Oh, that's amazing. Interesting. Okay, well, thank you so much, Edith, and thank you for remembering all these things that happened such a long time ago and telling us a little bit about them.